This month, the Sega Dreamcast celebrated its 19th birthday in the United States. While the console would disappoint commercially, it holds a special place in gamers' hearts despite its brief lifespan, thanks to its unique library of innovative games. But what about the games it didn't receive? What about those cancelled classics? Today, I take a look at a slew of games that would be announced, but ultimately never receive a release on Sega's 6th gen console, including a myriad of games which would find homes elsewhere. I'm aiming to look at more obscure ports, rather than big titles which got widespread coverage after their cancellation. I also won't be including Sega games like Shinobi and ToeJam and L3, just to keep things interesting. Let's kick things off where no one can hear you scream. Suffering from a turbulent development which missed the film's release by 3 years, it's not surprising that Argonaut's innovative yet critically divisive first-person shooter would never make it to the Dreamcast. It would even be restarted from scratch after starting life as a third-person horror game in the same vein as Resident Evil. The game eventually released on PlayStation 1 in 2000, but perhaps due to its continuous delays, would sell poorly. An article from IGN in 2001 stated that many Fox titles were in peril on the Dreamcast, and while reiterating that Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Planet of the Apes were still being made, though both were eventually cancelled, they confirmed the ceased development of Alien Resurrection on the Dreamcast. A shame, really, as it's an underrated shooter and could have benefited from mouse and keyboard support which many Dreamcast first-person shooters benefited from.
Time Crisis 2.
From one shooter to another, albeit a light gun game. There were many light gun games for the Dreamcast, including Sega's House of the Dead, which isn't surprising considering the arcade-centric hardware. But there was one more lost to time. Time Crisis 2. There isn't much news about this particular version, but Namco likely saw interest in porting it after the success of Soul Calibur, and though Sony often handled publishing of Namco games in Europe, it seemed like a perfect fit for the console. Sadly, along with a proposed PlayStation 1 port, it was cancelled without much fanfare and reason given. With Mr. Driller being Namco's only other game, it seems their support for the system was rescinded. It's disappointing, as Time Crisis 2 is considered one of the better light gun games and would have found a comfy home on the Dreamcast. Starting as Project Ego, Fable would become one of the key exclusives in Microsoft's Xbox lineup. But it originally started life on the Dreamcast, as revealed by Anniversary director Tim Timmins in 2014. Though there was never an official announcement, it was likely in development around the time of the Dreamcast demise, and as such was put on hold due to the system's discontinuation in 2001. While it certainly would have been interesting to see it running on Sega's console, I imagine it could have ended up disappointing, as when Fable would release in 2004, it was missing many features that had been touted by the overeager Peter Molyneux, who oversold the game. The Dreamcast may have benefited from an RPG, but not one which would disappoint those excited for it. Speaking of Lionhead, another Lionhead project, which was proposed to launch for the Dreamcast, was Black and White, the God game which received universal acclaim at the time, but later would earn re-rates that were significantly harsher, with GameSpy calling it the most overrated of all time in 2003. Unlike Fable, Black and White was announced for the console, with GameSpot releasing a press statement giving it a fourth quarter release in 2001, as well as trailers, and it would be published by Sega. It never made it to release, however, likely due to Sega pulling out of the console market and the prospect of releasing a game for a dead platform being considered financially questionable. This combined with the slow process of porting, something that was confirmed by Molyneux himself in an interview with Retro Gamer. It's a unique game, and again, would likely benefit from mouse and keyboard support, but it was not meant to be. Oft considered one of the best launch titles of Sony's 2000 console, SSX actually began life on the Dreamcast before its launch. This was revealed by Steven Rechnefer in a 2018 article by US Gamer. This may shock some, as it is commonly known that EA refused to support Sega's system due to their choice of CPU manufacturer and licensing deals. Despite the Mega Drive bringing EA great success, they opted out of DC support due to the aforementioned, forcing EA Sports Big to move the project over to the PS2. A shame, as quality titles like SSX could have boosted Sega's stock of games immensely. There were other snowboarding games on Dreamcast, but none were up to the quality of SSX and its subsequent sequels.
Look at you, hacker. A pathetic creature.
One of the biggest PC cult classics, System Shock 2 would go on to serve as the basis for the later BioShock series, and would be universally acclaimed despite poor sales limiting its appeal at first. Though published by EA on the PC, Vatical Games stated that they, alongside Mariana Games, would be porting the classic to Dreamcast in May of 2000, but it never surfaced, presumably due to the demise of the Dreamcast, and the development house would shutter without a single game to their development portfolio. But in 2010, a Dreamcast modder found a Looking Glass dev kit which revealed assets from an unfinished ports of both System Shock 2 and Thief 2. This game would end up becoming harder to find, and to get a Dreamcast port would surely have helped expand its appeal and made it easier to preserve. Plus, like Alien Resurrection, mouse and keyboard support would surely have quelled concerns with the controls. And to conclude, here's a more obscure game, but one with a convoluted development history. Developed in part by Toby Gard, who helped create Tomb Raider, it would be announced back in 1997 for development on the original PlayStation. It would then shift to the Dreamcast, only to then further shift to the GameCube, and finally released for the original Xbox in 2004. It received major hype upon its announcement, touted as the first major independent project from one of the makers of Tomb Raider, but its continuous delays and change in publishers dampened its excitement, and released to mixed reviews. It was touted for a 2000 release on the Dreamcast, and while it certainly would have found a nice space among Sega's lineup of games, it seems like it was developed too long, and would have been dated even by the 2000 release date proposed. And that's just 7 of the cancelled Dreamcast games out there. I hope you enjoyed this trip down the Dreamcast past, and are there any cancelled Dreamcast games which caught your interest? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more retro gaming content.